Hello everybody and welcome to the West Coast Wednesday League at Trackalicious. My name is Kuja Terekov. I'll be commentating you through our night tonight. We've got a wet race at Indianapolis tonight. Should be a fun one. And speaking of fun, we are doing a fun little co-stream tonight as well with our friends Jace Wright and Jake Wells. So welcome everybody from those streams. Hope you're all having a good night tonight. And let's get to the qualifying action. It just sticked over to start our qualifying session. So let's get to our wet track at Indianapolis and see what is going on there. Hopefully everybody's having a fun and good Wednesday morning, evening, afternoon, or night so far. Should be in for some action-packed racing here, especially when the wet conditions absolutely unpredictable. Moist track funny moment. Always gonna have some funny moments around this wet and slippery track around Indianapolis. 13 drivers tonight, a quick 10-minute qualifying session, and then we will get underway for our 50-minute race that we have ahead. Currently no times set on the board, but I can only presume that these are the outlaps, and we are just waiting on our drivers to go around again and set a valid lap time. Chandler Williams is our winner from last time in the number 3 Mustang, trying to set a valid lap time here as he is most likely on his outlap at the moment. Thiago Dinarte in the Audi, the number 23, on a flying lap at the moment as well, looking to get through sector 2 through the slippy and slidey infield section before getting onto the power and getting onto the oval. Going the wrong way on the oval compared to how the Indy 500 runs it, but this is no doubt the correct orientations for these GT cars on this Indianapolis GT layout. Thiago rounding out the final corner, doesn't want to get too close to the wall as that will cause pretty heavy damage, and now up to the line charges the Audi and sets a time of 1:43.037, and that'll be the target for all of our fellow drivers to try and chase down. Potts Weaver setting a time on the board, a 1:44.4. Jake Finn a 45.1. And Chandler Williams able to get on pole position with a 1:42.797. About 2.5 tenths clear of the pace in front. Jake Wells rounding the final corner in the 527 McLaren. The infamous yellow and black livery of Jake Wells rolling around here in the wet and rainy conditions. I think this might have been his outlap. I think he came out a little bit past everybody at the end there, so this will be more than likely his outlap. Austin Doyle, though, charging around in the Jag. Good to see a Jag being represented once again here at the West Coast Wednesday League. Missing one of our Jags from last week, but surely they will be back again once the third week of the season rolls around next time. I believe it's Spa on the calendar, but that is next week, and this is now with just under 5 minutes left in the qualifying. Austin Doyle charging the Jag to the line. We'll see what time he can do. Doesn't have a valid time yet, so this will surely boost him up the standings. Up to 8th place he goes in the number 11. About 3 seconds off the pace at the top. Just behind here, Thiago Dinarte again up to the line. A 1:42.497 now. 3/10 clear of Chandler Williams, who is out on a flying lap at the moment. Just behind the Nissan of Finn, the 43, pushing a bit of air in front for Chandler Williams, and he now bests Thiago at the top with a 1:42.255. And they seem to just gain tenths on each other here and there. Curtis Rustin running a little bit wide at the final corner. Hopefully that doesn't invalidate his lap, and it looks like it has. Unfortunately for Curtis there, was able to improve his lap time, but we'll have to roll around yet again to avoid the track limits at the exit there. Liu in the 310 Lexus takes third, Jake Wells in fourth, Chronotis in fifth, Finn sits in sixth, with Curtis Rustin here in the Ferrari sitting in seventh place at the moment. Jace Wright in the Team WRT 2024 livery, the number 24 black and gold, very fun dragon livery being represented by Jace Wright. And of course he is co-streaming with us tonight, super fun for him to do that and join us. So thanks for joining us, Jace. And thanks for showing us this fun livery as well. Finishing out Sector 2 here. This will be corner number 11 before a pretty flat out section. In the dry, in the rain, it could be a little bit of a lift. Can't say for certain, as I have not driven around here in the wet conditions myself. Before coming up to this 90-degree corner at turn 13 and then 14, a corner to the left, where the pit stop entry is, so drivers must not forget to enter there for their pit stop. The entry is, of course, early on and not later, as it is in some other series. But now up to the line goes Jace Wright, improves up to 8th place, 1.69 seconds at the top at the moment. Or 1.69 away from the top at the moment, I should say. And now we'll ride with the McLaren of Potts Weaver, the number 13, rolling around through the first sector here at the infield of Indianapolis. A lot of 90-degree turns around Indianapolis. Kind of tough to have flow around here if you don't know how to get that flow. And at the top, Chandler Williams certainly demonstrating that he does have the flow around here, with Thiago Denarte improving his time to within 0.2 at the top, so not too far off are our top two, with Liu and Finn also separated by 0.02 of a second for third and fourth place. They're both about 3.5 tenths off the pace at the top. Potts Weaver just a couple more corners to go in the lap, getting very close to the wall, and we see the barriers broken there on the entry. So hopefully he is able to avoid the same fate as those foam barriers and keeps it rolling on track nice and tidy, rounding the final corner before crossing the line, able to get up to 9th place, and this will be his last qualifying attempt with 30 seconds left on the clock. Thiago Denarte improves his time at the top for to a 1:42.0. Now that is the time to chase, and with the weather forecast showing there is less rain, being the last car out on track right now seems to be the move. Professor Chronotis' session is unfortunately done as he returns to the garage in the number 42 Blue Shell car. Hopefully that Blue Shell doesn't go for our leader in turn 1 here at Indianapolis tonight. Austin Doyle in the Jag. A couple corners for him to go. Pretty much everybody in that first sector we can see on that track map to the right. It's just starting their final laps with just in the nick of time before the qualifying session is done, and Thiago Denarte returns to the pits. He is happy with that lap on top and won't be able to improve anymore as his session is done with him returning to the pits. Freeman from 8th place returns to the pits, as well as Kyle Hirsch from 11th and Buggy Watt from 13th. Austin Doyle in the number 11 Jag up to the line. Let's see just how high he can climb. And he's not able to improve his position, but he does improve his lap time, so it does show that there is plenty of improvement available here with the conditions changing ever so much. Potts Weaver is going to be the first of the bunch to cross the line, with Chandler Williams not too far behind. Not able to improve his position, stays in 9th place. Chandler Williams also just pulling off to the side, just 800ths off the top. Jake Finn across the line sets a time good enough for 4th place. And Jake Wells improves up to 3rd, and he is going to be the last one to cross the line, and he is going to take 2nd place away from Chandler Williams right as those two cross the line, with Curtis Rustin taking 6th place. Nice and tight grid we have tonight. Absolutely tight between the top 3, within 100th between Thiago Tenarte, Jake Wells, and Chandler Williams at the top. And of course the gaps were ever so close all throughout the field. And what should be a pretty fun race. The track conditions showing us damp at the moment as well, but the rain is supposed to increase, as we see on that weather prediction at the top right of the screen. Let's get ourselves onto the grid and check out the drivers' liveries and get to know the teams and the grid order for the start. Thiago Tenarte qualifying the number 23. Please break T1 Audi on pole position with a good lap time of a 1:42.0 for the Brazilian driver on top, with Jake Wells setting a lap at the end, right at the final moments. Good enough for 2nd place in the JWR NLR 527 McLaren. Chandler Williams was also really close to the top, within 100th of a second of pole position. So the pace of the 3 at the top should be absolutely close throughout the race. He is in the number 3 Please Break T1 Mustang. Jake Finn in the Nissan, also representing the Please Break T1 team in the number 43, will sit in 4th place on the grid. Another Japanese manufacturer, the Lexus, driven by Sarah Liu in the A2 number 310, starting in 5th place, with Curtis Rustin in 6th in the Drive Motorsport 868 Ferrari. The first Ferrari, followed by the 2nd Ferrari on the grid, the number 42 of Professor Chronotis in that blue shell Ferrari. Alex Freeman will start in 8th place in the AF Sport number 14 McLaren, with Jace Wright providing him company in 9th in the number 24 Team WRT 2024. And we have Potts Weaver joining us in the co-stream as well now. I think I just saw him join. So thanks to everybody joining us for the co-streams, as well as Jake Wells and Jace Wright, who we just saw on the we just saw on the grid before. Potts Weaver, who lines up in 10th place in the number 13 McLaren. Kyle Hirsch in the Dive Bombers number 21 McLaren lines up in 11th place tonight, with Austin Doyle in the fan favorite Jag. The Doyle Mosport number 11 will start in 12th, with Buggy Watt in the 410 McLaren starting from 13th place in round 2 of the West Coast Wednesday spring season here at Trackalicious. Wet conditions here for the race. Should get a little bit more wet as the race goes on as well. Full formation lap for the drivers to get their tires and their brakes and themselves warmed up for the start of the 50-minute race we have ahead. Stands are absolutely packed despite the wet conditions we can see off to the right. Absolutely filled to the brim for what is surely going to be a very exciting race around Indianapolis in the West Coast Wednesday League. And if you want to sign up, sign-ups are still open on SimGrid, so do feel free to join if the time works for you. You don't have to live on the West Coast, of course. Just if the time works for you, do feel free to sign up, and we are happy to have you on the grid. 13 cars tonight. We'll see if Chandler Williams can take the win as he did in race 1 of the season. The championship winner from last time around as well. Off to a good start in this season in the lone Mustang on the grid tonight. The McLaren is a popular choice. 5 McLarens on the grid, 2 Ferraris, and one of pretty much every other manufacturer that we see here. The Audi on top of Thiago Dinarte. Take a quick sip of tea here. Just myself in the studio. Gonna be a lot of talking. I'm presuming with how wet the conditions are, it's gonna be pretty chaotic, but knowing these drivers should be still pretty clean and well maintained. Knock on wood. Commentator's curse hopefully not coming into play, but if it does, exclamation mark curse. We got a hydrate redeem in the chat. Thanks so much. We're gonna take another sip of tea. Much appreciated, much needed, especially right before the drivers line up for the start of the grid. Just a few corners to go now. Quick sip of tea. We are gonna get this show on the road. Damp conditions for now. Presumably everybody taking wet tires with how the rain is presumed to increase in the forecast, with just one corner to round out before the start-finish straight, and we will get the green light for our 50-minute countdown to start to get this race underway. One pit stop is mandatory for our drivers, with a pit window opening 1 minute into the race and closing 1 minute before, so you cannot pit on the final lap of the race to try and get that pit stop advantage towards the end. But now we are in a zipper formation with the green light going. It looks like Thiago Dinarte gets a good start at the top, and he does. Jake Wells pulls alongside. Jake Finn gets a good run next to Chandler Williams in the Nissan, and he's pretty hesitant on the brakes, but he's able to sweep around the outside, and now he has the inside of turn 2, and Chandler Williams might give that position up, and he does. He tucks in behind, with Jake Wells going for a move for the lead at the top. Thiago Dinarte slipping and sliding, going wide, and Jake Wells gets the overtake done and moves the McLaren into the lead. Jake Finn behind in third place, Chandler Williams dropping to fourth, Professor Chronotis moving up to sixth, with the Ferrari of Curtis Rustin going to the back of the grid after an unfortunate incident. It seems like maybe just that Ferrari spinning around. Chandler Williams creeping that nose in on the inside of the Nissan, but Jake Finn confident on the brakes in the rain, able to keep the position. A bit of swaps from our starting grid so far. Jake Wells able to sweep through the inside of the braking zone at turn 3 to take the lead, and now Chandler Williams is looking really racy and is going to try to get the move done on the Nissan in front, and the front two look really close as well between Thiago Dinarte and Jake Wells. Battles going on all the way through the grid. The grid's still super tight from first to last. Despite Curtis Rustin losing those positions, he is still right within the grasp of the back of the grid, getting very close to the wall as both of the cars are weaving side by side, or side to side as I should say, not quite side by side yet. Thiago just thinking the better of it, tucking in behind Jake Wells at turn 1, with Jake Finn not giving that position up at all, despite the speed of the Mustang being very prominent in the ACC sim at the moment. We heard that race director say that the pit window is now open, so if drivers do choose so, they can come into the pit stop to serve their mandatory pit stop for refueling only, and of course it will be up to the drivers to choose their strategy, but more on that later. With the action going out on the track for now, pretty close between our top 4, top 5 even, with Sarah Liu creeping up to the back of this battle in the Lexus. Chronotis as well in that bright blue shell, with Kyle Hirsch gaining a lot of positions from the start, moving up to 7th place. Jace Wright sits in 8th, and these two are super close now, bumper to bumper between Jake Finn and Chandler Williams, and Chandler Williams might dive up the inside here, but the Nissan is super confident once again on those brakes, able to get the braking zone handled and not giving the Mustang any room to work with to make any moves stick. Austin Doyle and Potts Weaver rounding out our top 10. It's a bit of a bit of a hit to the wall for both Jake Finn, and it looked like Chandler Williams followed him a little bit, but now he's gonna try to sweep up the inside. But Jake Finn, once again, the brakes in the Nissan looking really good, and there's a fight for the lead now as Jake Wells running a little bit deep. Thiago Dinarte tried to have a sniff of that battle, with battles going all the way up and down the grid. Jake Finn sliding the Nissan is gonna give the inside to Chandler Williams. Is he gonna take it through turn number 5 in the braking zone of turn 6? He has the inside, and Sarah Liu is looking to get involved in this battle as well. But Jake Finn has the grip on the inside and gets the Nissan back ahead into third place. But now this corner opening up really wide. The track limits are all the way out onto the grass. Thank you very much for the follow. Much appreciated. Right in the middle of this battle, the Lexus is going to have a sniff up the inside. But Chandler Williams covering off that opportunity. And this 2-car battle for the podium has turned into a 4-car battle, with the blue shell of Professor Chronotis joining the battle. Now Jake Finn looking to improve out of that corner, but it looks like the mighty Mustang just really has the grip out of turn number 11 and into turn 12 to get really close to the Nissan. But once again, we're seeing the power of the braking of the Nissan in the play here, and the Lexus in the background as well, looking really aggressive on the brakes. Sarah Liu getting ever so closer to the bumper of the Ford, and now the battle at the front continues. The inside line being taken by Jake Finn, and he is able to cover off Chandler Williams before the braking zone of turn 1. Absolutely wet and slidey here tonight. Really fun conditions here. The podium sitters are going to go side by side. It's too wide, and that is Chandler Williams sweeping around the outside of turn 5, and Jake Finn can do nothing about it. And now he might be a passenger in the battle with Sarah Liu, but he is able to cover off that position. And now Chandler Williams has 2.7 seconds to the back of the top of the grid, with Jake Wells and Thiago Dinarte still within half a second of each other. Meanwhile, the back of the grid still, or not the back of the grid, the rest of the grid, I should say, still staying the way it is. Curtis Rustin able to get through Buggy Watt, now has about 5 seconds to catch up to till the back of Alex Freeman, who sits in 11th place behind Austin Doyle, who occupies that final top 10 position. Once again, that Mustang out of turn number 11 and 12, able to get the grip and the power down, and now the Nissan is more so under pressure from the Lexus behind, I would say, than being able to pressure the car in front. Absolutely beautiful rainbow of colors we have here on the grid tonight. The orange at the top, the blues, the yellows, the reds absolutely being represented by the Please Brake T1, the pink of the Jag, the yellows of Alex Freeman and Jace Wright as well. So absolutely fun and colorful grid here tonight. Really love seeing the designs that all of our folks provide to us here at Trackalicious. Jace Wright, one of our co-streamers tonight, being in a bit of a McLaren sandwich with Kyle Hirsch in front, and Potts Weaver now trying to have a sniff up the inside. Another one of our co-streamers tonight, Potts Weaver. Thank you all for joining us here tonight. Let us know who you're supporting in the chat as well, and we can tune into them and see how their race is looking and see the perspective of some of the drivers who we don't quite get to see all the time because the action is happening elsewhere and we are tuned in into other battles on track. But Jace Wright getting a little bit unsettled over the curbs in the infield, but Potts Weaver not able to get a move done just yet. This McLaren and BMW sandwich still rolling around the way it is, with Kyle Hirsch leading the way for 7th place, trying to get closer to the back of the Blue Shell Chronotis. Kyle Hirsch, though, running a little bit deep into turn 13. Potts Weaver again having a sniff up the inside of the BMW, but Jace Wright confident, giving a little bit of room and able to get the grip around the outside of the final corner and gets the BMW back up and rolling into those top spots. Meanwhile, at the top, Thiago Dinarte still right on the bumper of Jake Wells for the lead of the race. The McLaren and Audi separated by nothing, with a fantastic move from Jake Wells from the beginning to take the lead away into this corner here. Or I should say the corner before. I kind of started that sentence when they were in the corner, but nonetheless, a bit slidey from the Audi of Dinarte behind. But he's still able to keep right under the wing of the McLaren. And of course, in these wet conditions, anything can happen. Now Chandler Williams setting blistering pace, setting the fastest lap of the race, now right on the back of this battle for the top spot in tonight's race. Another quick sip of tea here. Continuous action all the way up and down the grid, with Chandler Williams getting by Jake Finn, who has Sarah Liu and Professor Chronotis behind, with Kyle Hirsch, Jace Wright, and Potts Weaver in a bit of a battle on their own for 7th, 8th, and 9th place. And Jace Wright is looking to move around the outside, and now into the final corner they go. One of the best overtaking opportunities into turn 1, or is into turn 1, with that heavy braking zone approaching. We'll see just how close the BMW can get to Kyle Hirsch, but it looked like Jace just had a bit of a wiggle on the exit, so didn't quite have all the power he needed. And he's looking really confident in the corners though, and on the brakes, but just not able to get the power down just yet through those acceleration zones. And we can see once again the forecast updating to even heavier rain arriving in 30 minutes. Austin Doyle in the Jag already completing his pit stop in the number 11. There we see the Jag under blue flag conditions, just stepping aside of this battle going on for 7th, 8th, and 9th. Jace Wright really going to the inside. Perhaps the wet weather tires getting a little bit hot with the conditions being damp and just not wet. More than likely, I'm guessing, our drivers took wet tires to start out the race and just see how it goes with the conditions predicted to get worse throughout the 50-minute race we have ahead. Just about 12 minutes under our belts here so far. Good action all the way from the top to the bottom. Jake Wells taking the lead into turn number 3 from Thiago Dinarte, who qualified on pole. Now Chandler Williams dives into pit lane from 3rd place after getting by Jake Finn earlier on in the race, setting really good lap times. A 1:41.075 is that purple lap time we see on the, that purple indicator we see on the left-hand side shows that he does in fact have the fastest lap of the race. And I don't think that lap time will be getting any better with the conditions presumably getting worse here tonight. Kyle Hirsch running wide. Oh no! Just missed it at the front of the pack here. But he did run wide, and that is going to give the position to both Jace Wright and Potts Weaver, moving up now into 6th and 7th respectively. Unfortunate for Kyle there. Just as I was paying attention to other battles and gaps on track, of course, all the action happened right in front of our eyes, and couldn't quite see what happened there. but he's still able to keep the McLaren rolling, and now the 3 McLarens rolling on track together in 7th, 8th, and 9th. But Potts Weaver is trying to change that, looking really racy right on the back of the bumper. No! Stop go 30 for Chandler Williams for speeding in the pit lane, and that is going to be a devastating blow to the podium sitter. He was sitting in 3rd place before entering the pits and now has all the work to do from the stop go 30. Potts Weaver either making a last-minute decision to dive into the pits, or it was a last-minute decision to dive into the pits. I was going to say he either misjudged the braking zone, or now is the time to dive into pit road and take some fresh tires and get the car refueled. And right as we tune into Sarah Liu, going deep on the brakes, unfortunately, now giving the position and still not quite facing the correct way on track. A bit of a break in the action there, and Sarah Liu able to keep that Lexus rolling. I'll take the curse for that as we tuned into Sarah right as that unfortunate mishap was happening. Jake Wells pulling out a bit of a gap at the top here, 2.2 seconds between him and Thiago Dinarte for the lead. Of course, Jake Wells, one of those co-streaming with us tonight, so a big shout out to him for doing that with us tonight, and always fun to see Jake Wells rolling around on track with the incredible pace that he has in the McLaren. The V10 of the Audi, always super loud around an echoey track such as Indianapolis. Always fun to hear the variety of the engine noises as well on the grid from the Jag with that really low rumble, as well as the Mustang of Chandler Williams. And then the absolutely screaming roar of the V10s of the Audi and the Lamborghini. No Lamborghinis on the grid tonight, but still pretty much the same engine in the back of those two vehicles. Even more drivers ducking into pit road. Kyle Hirsch, after that unfortunate incident we saw at turn 2, just going a little bit wide onto the grass, but able to keep the McLaren rolling in the race, choosing to take that pit stop now and coming out into a bit of traffic now in between Jake Wells and Thiago Dinarte. Alex Freeman sitting in 7th place, just behind Sarah Liu, who had that unfortunate spin that we were just able to pick up as well, unfortunately. But able to keep the Lexus rolling around despite the conditions being pretty challenging, changing ever so much. Chandler Williams in the pit lane as well now, clearing that stop go 30. And knowing Chandler, he's got absolutely incredible pace, and he is going to show it around here tonight. But that stop go 30 is kind of a long, pretty devastating penalty, around 50 or so seconds for that. So hopefully able to keep his tremendous pace rolling, and we will see just how far up the grid our race winner from round 1 can do in round 2 around Indianapolis here tonight. And Chandler Williams, I believe, now back in the pits. And unfortunately, it looks like he is now, yeah, just sitting in the pits there. We can see the Mustang. I didn't see him roll into the pit lane. He must have just returned to the garage. And now just, unfortunately, this race has gone from bad to worse for our race winner from last time out. Oh, and Thiago Dinarte now dropping to 3rd place. I didn't notice at first. I thought he was still in 2nd, but now he is behind Jake Finn, who is getting the 43 Nissan up into 2nd place now. But these two dropping back a little bit now, 3.7 seconds to the lead car of Jake Wells, We can see it just in the front of shot there. These two, though, approaching the lapped traffic of Kyle Hirsch, who has already come into the pit stop and is in 11th place. But yeah, not quite sure what happened with Thiago. Either a drop in pace or a little bit of a mistake from the Brazilian driver, dropping him behind the fellow Please Brake T1 teammate in the Nissan ahead. But still looking racy is the Audi, and now right on the bumper of Jake Finn. A little bit of a squirrely exit there before the blast down the start-finish straight, and we'll see if the Audi has any speed advantage. The Nissan going to the wet surface, cooling down those wet weather tires who don't like this damp running, are overheating a fair bit. Chronotis now in the number 42 blue-shelled Ferrari dives into the pit lane, and he will serve his mandatory pit stop and get that cleared and done and dusted. And of course, the pit stop tonight is mandatory with a fixed refueling time of 25 seconds. And then it is up to the drivers to decide if they want to take an extra 5 seconds and take fresh tires or not. And now, Jake Finn looking really squirrely on the exit there. Might give the position to Thiago Dinarte, who is going to send the Audi down the inside, of turn number 8, and gets the move done around his teammate. The 23 moving up ahead of the 43, Audi ahead of the Nissan, and the Nissan really looking to struggle a little bit in these sort of damp transitioning to wet conditions. But Thiago Dinarte did drop back that position and hopefully will ride mistake-free to the end, as he has 4.4 seconds to close down on Jake Wells in the lead of the race. About to complete lap 12, about 20 minutes completed of our 50-minute race so far here tonight at the West Coast Wednesday Trackalicious League. Big thanks again to those co-streaming with us. Jake Wells currently in the top spot after a great move in lap 1 to get the move done, just negotiating a bit of lapped traffic at the moment. Go Speed Demons. Chronotis, you got this. Come on, Chronotis, get that blue shell up into the lead, as we see in all those Mario Kart games before. Absolutely fun creative livery from the professor in the West Coast Wednesday League this season. I love to see it. Jace Wright goes into the pits in the number 24. Speaking of Jace Wright, he is one of those drivers who is co-streaming with us tonight, so do make sure to give all of those drivers co-streaming with us a follow and show some love for them in their chat as well. Completing the pit stop now, rolling out of the pit lane. He was battling with Potts Weaver and Kyle Hirsch before the pit lane. The number 13 of Potts Weaver is crossing the start-finish line now, rolling down the main straight, and this is absolutely devastatingly slow. Just crawling down pit lane at the pit speed limiter, and the McLaren of Potts Weaver is easily able to get that position, and now Jace Wright has a little bit of work to do to catch up to the McLaren in front, who I will remind you all is again one of those co-streaming with us tonight. So again, do make sure to show Potts Weaver bit of love in the chat. Good to see that fun co-stream working. Hopefully it's working for you guys. Let us know if it's not. Please, it's our first time trying this out, so hopefully everybody's got that nice and sorted. And if it's not, yeah, please do let us know. And we'll try to get everything fixed for you guys here tonight. And unfortunately, it looks like the race is done for Chandler Williams, as he has been sitting in the pit lane for quite a little bit of time. A brief yellow flag there for Alex Freeman, and it's still under yellow, just cutting the track a little bit there in turns number 5 and 6. Just losing the position, unfortunately, to Curtis Rustin, who dropped back from the start, but has a pretty good recovery drive going so far. Yet to pit, but has the Ferrari up into 4th place at the moment, as we're just about to hit the halfway mark of the race. Thiago Dinarte in the pits in the number 23 as well. And he is dropping back a fair bit of places. Not sure what happened there from Thiago. It now says he's in 11th place. So I'm not really sure what happened there from the driver who qualified in pole position in the Audi. Is just getting used to how the Audi's handling. In 10th place, according to the timing chart on the left-hand side of your screen there. But we'll just have to wait and see exactly where he comes out. Now dropping back to 11th place behind the McLaren of Kyle Hirsch. And running wide there at turn number 5. Or sorry, turn 6 that is Thiago. And giving the position to the 3rd place sitter at the moment, Liu. And of course not giving the position that's under blue flags. And maybe, just maybe, I wonder if there was a tire miscall in the pit lane and Thiago is rolling on dry tires at the moment with how that car was handling. And I'm not sure how he dropped so many places. He was at the top of the field and now near the bottom, sitting in 11th place behind Jace Wright and Kyle Hirsch, who were battling it out for 7th, 8th, and 9th place earlier on in the race. Our top 4 yet to stop. Jake Wells completing 15 laps so far. And Thiago, yes, certainly diving into the pits again. Unfortunate there for our pole sitter tonight. And not such good luck for the Please Brake T1 team, as Chandler Williams, one of those teammates, in the pits as well in the number 3 Ford tonight. But things are still going good for Jake Finn. In 2nd place at the moment, 6.8 seconds off of the lead of Jake Wells, with Sarah Liu 12.3 seconds back in 3rd place in the Lexus at the moment. A bit more action in pit lane. Curtis Rustin in the 868 Ferrari serving his mandatory pit stop, with Chandler Williams and Thiago Dinarte keeping him company while he does that. The track is now wet, so the conditions are getting worse out there, so a bit more challenging for the drivers to keep those cars pointed in the correct direction, and especially over those curbs and the grass. You absolutely do not want to dip a wheel onto the grass, and that might send the car spinning in the wrong directions. In a bit of traffic here is Jake Finn, actually deciding to come into the pits, and I believe one of those cars in front coming into the pits as well. That's Alex Freeman coming into the pits, who did already serve his pit stop, but now he has to come in once again, unfortunately, there for the McLaren driver. Maybe again just a pit stop bug, giving the wrong tires to some of our drivers not suited for the conditions we have out here. And a bit of a crowded pit lane there. Alex Freeman parking up just in front of Chandler Williams. A bit of a challenging break point there for him to negotiate. Sarah Liu in the A2 310 Lexus. Still yet to serve her pit stop in second place at the moment. Bit of a gap to Jake Wells in first place. And just now having to wait for our top two and Buggy Watt to come into the pits to serve those mandatory pit stops in the West Coast Wednesday League. Mandatory all season long, not just in tonight's race. Part of the strategy built in to the 50-minute races hosted here at Trackalicious on Wednesday nights in the US. And of course, if this time slot works for you, you don't have to live in the US on the West Coast to participate in the championship. Signups are open to all on SimGrid. Do feel free to join us if the time slot works for you, and you can see yourself on the stream here tonight. Just next week or the week after, we will certainly be back. Sarah Liu now into the pit lane. Kyle Hirsch and the Dive Bombers, number 21. Or sorry, let's tune into the battle here between Chronotis and Jace Wright. I was going to say Kyle Hirsch having a bit of a moment earlier on, but still rolling in the race, trying to catch up to the battle here for 7th and 6th place between Professor Chronotis and Jace Wright. With Jace Wright in the 24, currently leading the way in the BMW, leading the way in 6th place. 1.8 seconds for them to catch up to Potts Weaver, who is in the McLaren in front. Not that yellow one, that is Alex Freeman, who is in 10th place. It is the bright and colorful purple, all sorts of colors. Oh no, and that's it! The one just going off and spinning in the picture there. That was Potts Weaver now, dropping a few places to Jace Wright and Professor Chronotis. Apologies, Potts, for the curse there. Dang, of course, right as it happened. So yeah, just start to curse everybody here tonight. Exclamation mark, curse indeed. And we can see there the lovely chat saying the commentators cursed the drivers 118 times. But I think it's a little bit more than that. We probably missed one or two earlier on. And Jake Wells and Buggy Watt now in the pits in their respective McLarens. This battle still going on between the Ferrari and Jace Wright, with Liu dropping to 5th place after serving the pit stop. Actually, even further now, as the timing charts are still updating on the left-hand side of the picture there. Alex Freeman ducking out of the way of this battle here, which is now for 3rd and 4th place. So Jace Wright and Professor Chronotis now in the battle for 3rd and 4th, with the blue shell trying to advance through the field and move up into that final podium position. Jake Wells in the pits as well, with Buggy Watt just in front, serving those mandatory pits up. And a bump from Professor Chronotis, unfortunately, to the back of Jace Wright. And hopefully Jace Wright in the BMW is able to maintain the car, and good on the Professor to kind of drop back a little bit. And unfortunately, Alex Freeman had to do the same. But a bit of a bump into turn 13. But the Professor, I should say, very respectful to Jace and letting him keep that position in front. There's a battle going to heat up between that McLaren behind of Alex Freeman, with Thiago Dinarte on the charge in the 23 red Audi. We can see it just coming into picture there from the right-hand side, now the left. And the Professor might be suffering a bit of front-end damage now on the Ferrari, just not having the grip, it seems, as he did on the previous lap that we were following here. And this is not good news for Freeman, who is going to be held up by these cars in front. And he is going to be battling with the Audi behind. The Next Level Racing brand being represented by Professor Chronotis, and of course Trackalicious hosting the Next Level Racing GT3 Pro Championship here on Sundays. Do join us for those as well, as that is some of the best drivers in the business battling it out for position on track in that long 8-round championship here at Trackalicious. Looking on from the wing of the Professor, with the Audi looming ever closer to Alex Freeman, but the Professor getting the damage dealt with under his belt and is now pressuring Jace Wright once again for that final podium position in the race here tonight. Just over 15 minutes to go, so not quite desperation times yet for the number 42 Ferrari, but surely wants to try to get that position as quickly as possible, as he might want to close that gap ahead, which is 8.6 seconds to second place. Jake Finn in the number 43 occupying that position at the moment. A good 4-car battle on track, but really it's 2 separate battles. Professor Chronotis trying to get that final podium position away from Jace Wright in that gold and black BMW at the top, with the yellow and black McLaren behind trying to defend for 10th place from Thiago Dinarte, who had to serve a second pit stop for, I presume, a tire, not necessarily glitch or miscalculation, not sure, but just anyway, had to take a second pit stop, and is now trying to take 10th place away from Alex Freeman. But he is finding himself right on the tail of the Professor once again, coming into these final sectors of the track at Indianapolis, and not the best place to catch up to somebody, especially with a fast driver like Thiago lurking in the background, trying to take advantage as best as he can in the Audi. Alex Freeman taking the inside line, and Dinarte following him for that slipstream advantage, any bit of advantage he can get, and he's going to try to send a move on the inside. Not quite yet, decides to pull back for now. Good pace at the front, 20 laps from Jake Wells completed. Jake Finn, though, getting a little bit closer on that last lap. The gap down to 2.5 seconds for the lead of the race between the 43 and the 527. But this is the battle going on for third place between Professor Chronotis and Jace Wright in the BMW. And of course, there's that battle between Freeman and Dinarte behind as well, but still lining up the way they were on the previous lap, going into lap 21 of this 50-minute race at the West Coast Wednesday Championship. Round 1 was a nice and dry race at Watkins Glen. This very wet, slippy and slidey, as Jace Wright has to take to the outside, going into the grass, and now the Professor is gonna slip on through and take third place away. And he now has a bit of clean air in front to see what pace he can do in that Ferrari. But Jace Wright not wanting to give that position up easily, trying to stay close to the bumper behind. Kyle Hirsch there battling with Sarah Liu in the background here. This is for 5th and 6th place. Sorry, that's Potts Weaver and Sarah Liu. Kyle Hirsch sitting in 7th place, 7 seconds behind this battle. But battle's picking up here in the closing stages of the race. The 310 on the back of Potts Weaver. Running a little bit wide, though, drifting through turn number 4. Not the quickest way to take it, but able to keep that Lexus pointing in the correct direction. Jace Wright pulling away a little bit from this battle for 10th and 11th place between Thiago Dinarte and Alex Freeman. Alex Freeman setting that car up perfectly on the defensive line going into turn number 8. But Thiago looking to go side by side into turns 9 and 10, just not quite able to find the grip to do that just yet in the number 23 Audi as he continues to pressure the yellow McLaren of Alex Freeman in front. And we can see in the background there the battle for 6th and 5th place between Potts Weaver and Sarah Liu. Lots of love for Chronotis in the chat tonight. Able to get through Jace Wright after he went a little bit deep into turn number 13. Gets that position done and dusted. And it looks like Potts Weaver now dropping behind Sarah Liu. The Lexus moving up into 5th place as we were riding with the battle. And Alex Freeman running deep into turn 1. Can Thiago Dinarte sweep around the outside to take the move? Now has the inside line, and Alex Freeman gives up that position a little bit easily there, knowing that the faster driver of Thiago Dinarte going through in a drift on the corner exit there from Thiago. Really cool camera shot there, nice and low angle, showing the slip angle of Thiago as he went through that corner, but able to get the move done nonetheless and sliding that Audi into the top 10 with Buggy Watt in front. Just 12.5 seconds, a little bit of time in the race left, but not sure if Thiago quite has that pace to catch up to Buggy, who is in 9th place at the moment. A bit of a spin there for the number 11 of Austin Doyle, but able to keep things collected and gets the Jag still rolling in the race with just under 10 minutes to go now. Action is picking up all the way up and down the grid. Battle for the lead intensifying. Jake Wells and Jake Finn, the battle of the Jakes at the top of the race here. Jake Wells on the real defensive line. I think he actually kind of hit that wall on the pit wall, I should say, on the inside line of the track there, just trying to break any sort of tow from Finn behind. Just as we were saying, the battles were picking up. They sure are, especially at the top of the grid here for 1st and 2nd place between the McLaren and the Nissan. Jake Finn qualifying, I believe, in 4th place, able to move the Nissan up into 2nd, with Chandler Williams unfortunately still in the pit lane in the number 3 Mustang. This is the most pressure Jake Wells has seen through the majority of the race, able to run away a little bit at the beginning, but now Jake Finn pressuring the McLaren as much as he can going into the final complex at Indianapolis, getting onto the banking there before going into another little infield section of turns 13 and 14. And the brake advantage once again pretty evident there for the Nissan as he's able to get pretty close to the McLaren, but the McLaren just running away on the straights here, has the grip on corner exit to pull away a good gap before the braking zone at turn 1. Jake Finn almost having a look of the inside there. Professor Chronotis did creep up into the picture there in the background in the blue shell Ferrari, so perhaps he has been activated, and we will see that blue shell flying towards the leaders here at any moment now. 9 seconds to close, but with these two battling, anything can happen. They're slowing each other down, not taking the optimal line through the corners, and Jake Finn really applying the pressure to Jake Wells as he is sliding that McLaren around, trying to get the power down for any advantage he can. Now this is a heavy braking zone going into turn number 8. Can the Nissan find the room, find the grip around the outside here? And he can, as he bumps Jake Wells into the curb, and they make contact again. The Nissan holding the brakes on the grass, able to keep out of the wall, and now the professor does gain that position with the 43 of Jake Finn, still now just getting back out onto the track. I believe now behind Sarah Liu in 5th place. And an unfortunate incident there. Oh, and Jace Wright! That's Jace Wright going into the wall, but he's able to keep the BMW under control. And that is the lapped car of Buggy Watt in front. Sarah Liu trying to get onto the podium to take that place away from Jace Wright. And now the battles are really picking up here after that incident between our top two. Professor Chronotis within 5 seconds of the lead of the race as well in that blue shell. Perhaps still has a chance, with Jake Wells more than likely picking up a few seconds of damage from that contact with Jake Finn and the Nissan. And there's Buggy Watt running deep into turn 1 in the McLaren, but still able to keep that car going, keeping it out of any walls. Jace Wright here in that black and gold BMW coming under pressure from Sarah Liu in the Lexus. Absolutely close between these two, as Sarah Liu looking to have a sniff up the inside there, but Jace Wright closing the door and not letting that happen at all. Curtis Rustin in the 868, getting closer and closer to Kyle Hirsch. This battle will surely pick up in the closing stages of the race with 4.5 minutes left on the clock here tonight, folks. Anything can still happen in the top 10. Absolutely close action all the way throughout the grid here. The rear wing of Jace Wright sees the front of Sarah Liu try to sweep through the inside, and we've seen it once, we've seen it again here. Jace Wright just running a little bit deep into turn number 13, giving the position to Sarah Liu, who positioned that car perfectly to take that position and gets the 310 Lexus into the final podium position here. Another quick sip of tea. Absolutely incredible action picking up here. The rain increasing still and still towards the closing stages of the race here tonight. Jake Wells still in the lead after 26 laps with a bit of an incident with the Nissan. Might be a bit of a steward's decision as to any penalties that might need to be awarded for that incident, but nonetheless, Jake Finn coming off the worst in that battle, dropping to 5th place, 2.7 seconds behind the BMW here of Jace Wright. This is the view of Curtis Rustin behind Kyle Hirsch in the Dive Bombers number 21 McLaren here. The Fanatic branded rear wing of Kyle Hirsch, pulling away a pretty good gap here to Curtis Rustin. I was saying this battle might pick up towards the end, but Kyle Hirsch picking up a bit of a gap here, like I mentioned a few seconds ago. Repeating myself as it's getting a little bit late here, and I'm out of tea, unfortunately. Too much action to keep up with, having to drink all of my tea. But now in this braking zone. Curtis Rustin looking really confident in the Ferrari, but Kyle Hirsch able to get the power out of the corners to not let any sort of an advantage come towards the Ferrari behind. Just having to lift a little bit on the exit of the final corner before the main straight. Doesn't want to hit that wall on the exit and get too much damage. And there we see Potts Weaver in the foreground of the shot, 2.6 seconds in front of this battle for 7th and 8th place. Nice and fun slip and slidey conditions here tonight. Absolutely challenging for our drivers here tonight. Hopefully our league organizers are a little bit more kind to them next week and will provide them with a bit more of a dry track. But that is for next week to decide. Kyle Hirsch getting a little bit slidey there at turn 6. With the pit window closing, that means there is just 1 minute left in our race tonight. Jake Wells approaching the final couple of corners here, and he will surely have to do another lap in the race here. With Chronotis closing down the gap, it's now 3 seconds to the lead, but Jake Wells just has 1 more lap to negotiate, and he will come out on top in the race here tonight, with Professor Chronotis in second and Sarah Liu taking that 3rd place spot at the moment, with Jace Wright falling back down the grid 3.2 seconds after battling for the podium positions there, and Jake Finn in 5th place, with Potts Weaver in 6th in that McLaren in the foreground of shot here. Kyle Hirsch here in 7th, Curtis Rustin in 8th place, but things might change here as Curtis Rustin is getting closer and closer to the bumper of the McLaren. Is he going to have a look on the inside of turn 1? Thinks the better of it and just tucks in behind for now. Still a 2.4 mile loop for him to try and get that 6th place position from Potts Weaver, as there is just 1 final lap to go. The timer hits 0. This will be the final lap of the race. 29th lap of the contest here in the 50-minute race at Indianapolis. The Brickyard, as it's famously known. It was all brick before, but now just the start-finish line itself is brick. But still famously known as the Brickyard. Really fun nickname for this iconic, really, location for NASCAR and the IndyCar circuit. Kyle Hirsch under immense pressure from the back now, as Jake Wells is rounding the final corner to take the lead, to take the win, I should say, with Chronotis right on his tail to take 2nd place. And let's tune in back to this battle between Kyle Hirsch and Curtis Rustin. Kyle Hirsch around the outside, defended really well on the inside, forcing Curtis Rustin to take the long way around at turn 13, and he is able to defend it, but going up to the line, it's a drag race between the two, and Kyle Hirsch is able to take it. He takes 6th place down to the line away from Curtis Rustin, with Potts Weaver finishing in 5th, 3 seconds ahead of this battle. Thiago Dinarte recovering up to 8th place, with Alex Freeman finishing in 9th in the number 14 McLaren. Buggy Watt there in the back of shot, finishing out the race for himself, with Austin Doyle in the number 11 finishing in 11th place. The number matches the grid position there for Austin Doyle in the Jag, joining us here in the Doyle Mo Sport Jag. Chandler Williams unfortunately having to stay in the pit lane for his race after that pretty great start he had, able to, well, I guess he dropped back a position, but then was able to recover and take that position away, and was looking pretty racy, getting on to the tail of the top 2 before some sort of mistake, I must imagine, during the pit stop phase, forcing him to stay the remainder of the race in the wet pit lane. You can see the raindrops really pouring down here, just how wet it was for our drivers here tonight. And we would like to welcome our top three, Jake Wells, Professor Chronotis, and Sarah Liu, to join us in the green room for a quick chat and see how the race went from your perspective. Take it back to our lovely Trackalicious studio here. Super fun stuff in the race tonight. Gonna be fun and epic next week for sure, I can assure you. We've got Professor Chronotis in the green room. We've got some fans of Chronotis. Let's pull our friend in. How's it going, the professor himself? Good race from you there, finishing in second place.
Whoa, yeah, that was intense. I owe it to all the people who should have finished in front of me but didn't, because they were getting stop and goes and sitting in the pits or whatever happened to Denarte out there.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened there. I can only presume some kind of pit stop error where maybe dry tires were taken by mistake, but nonetheless, yeah, a bit of fortunate pickups for you. But at the end there, you were right on the tail of Jake Wells. What happened towards the end there?
Well, I was going faster than him. I don't know why. You'll have to ask him why he's so slow.
Well, we can pull him in just a second here. But yeah, what was it like dealing with those conditions? Were the practice servers like that? Were you able to get some practice time in those wet conditions?
I wouldn't know. I showed up 15 minutes before quali, got one valid lap in practice at 4 seconds off the pace, made some setup adjustments into quali, and then just focused on tire pressures from there. The tire pressures early in the race were too high on the left. I bet everybody was cooking over there.
Yeah.
And I did good, I think, to not make adjustments to them going into the second half of the race. I changed my tires, but I kept the same pressures because there's the increasing rain. So the tires kind of came to life in the second half of the race for me.
Yeah, it seemed like a bit of a kind of midway between dry and damp, or between dry and wet tires at the start there, with the conditions being damp. You did elect to start on the wet tires. It seemed like everybody did on the stream. We could see everybody pulling to that wet line to try and cool the tires down. And then talk about us through your moves. You had a couple of moves there in the to take the podium place at first from Jace Wright, and that was a really good move up the inside there. So talk us through that. What's it like lining up a move in the wet conditions?
Well, I was lining it up for 10 plus minutes. It was really hard to get past Jace there. Even when I was in the slipstream, I had all this downforce on my slow Ferrari, so I couldn't even gain on him from a slipstream. So it finally took him to make a mistake. He missed a key apex, and I got a run on the inside out of that corner, so I was able to just have it off him. But without his mistake, he probably would have been able to hang on forever. He was quite the roadblock there.
Yeah, indeed. And everybody else now joining us in the green room. We've got Jake Wells and Sarah Liu joining us on stream here. Thank you both for joining us. Welcome. Congratulations on finishing on the podium. We were just talking to the professor here of what it's like lining up a move in the wet. And Sarah, we saw you kind of do the same here there at the end to take that podium position. So what was it like for you lining up a position, or lining up for an overtake in these wet conditions?
It was like I actually did a very late pit stop because I saw the weather is gonna change like very late on this race. So I planned this. I get this plane like very early, like before the race, and I think that worked. And but actually on the first stint, it didn't really go as my wish. Like I have few mistakes, but actually the result is quite good. So yeah.
Yeah, podium result is a very good. Absolutely. Yeah, a couple of not necessarily mistakes, but just like unfortunate kind of spin-offs there. Were you able to get much practice in the wet conditions before the race tonight?
Yes, like I think I did some practice. I did some practice yesterday and early today. So I'm actually pretty confident about this condition, but it was like something something hardware problem makes me did that spun. So so pretty unlucky, but well, yeah.
Yeah, what can you do there? It's kind of like real life racing where you can just have one little mishap at any moment, but nonetheless able to get through those struggles and finish up on the podium. And congratulations for doing just that. And now, Jake Wells, one of our co-streamers tonight. Hopefully that worked pretty well on your end. Congrats on taking the win at the end there. It got really close. What was happening towards the end there, Jake?
I didn't take tires.
Gotcha.
That destroyed everything. And then, Jake Finn, he caught me like so quick, and all I was trying to do was defend my butt off. And unfortunately, ACC physics just kind of, we tapped and it shot me off the track. And then I came back on and just sliding, and unfortunately, he just got destroyed. So very unfortunate. Jake had an incredible race, and it's sad to see that happen. But
yeah, it was a bit of an unfortunate kind of an incident. Like, yeah, you were just kind of side by side, and just the slightest little tap like sent you into that curb, and then that curb really launched you.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, I tried to open up the corner just a bit, but I mean, we hardly tapped. I went back and looked at the replay, and yeah, it was sad. But I got into P1 about turn 3, and I just tried to hold that and pull away from Denarte, and all of a sudden Chandler just picked up pace, Chandler Williams, and it was going to be a good battle. And unfortunately, they had some incidents as well as just on their own.
Yeah, so Chandler picking up that stop go 30 for the pit lane speeding, and then something else happened after that too, but I wasn't quite able to pick up what. Just ending up sitting in the pits for the remainder of the race. But talk us through that move at the opening lap. That was a really fun, aggressive move to watch. What was it like lining it up? What did you see going into turn 3 there?
So there's an opportunity there. You just have to be really careful on the brakes. In the rain, it's kind of sorry, I got sound alerts going off in my ear.
Oh,
but
good.
Yeah, it was one of those things where as soon as I saw Denarte just open up the corner, I was like, this is my chance. And Indy's a very tough track to pass on anyways, even if you have pure pace. It's just, it's so tough. And once I got that nose in there, he was kind of just SOL and set a tuck in behind me for the rest of it.
Yeah, he was super close up until that pit stop phase, and unfortunately something happened to him as well. I can only presume some sort of like maybe dry or wet tire mishap in the pit lane. But he was able to recover pretty well, so...
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he missed his pit entrance, basically. So where the track transitions to the pit line, or pit lane, he went off and right into the wall.
Oh, so, no.
Yeah,
man.
He messed up pretty heavy there.
Oh, dang it. Unfortunate there. But nonetheless, you three at the top here, able to overcome the challenges of the wet weather race tonight, finishing on the podium. Jake Wells on top, Professor Carnotis in second, and Sarah Liu in third place. Congrats, guys, and hopefully we'll see you back on the podium and in the green room next week and in the coming rounds.
Sounds good. Thank you, buddy.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks for commentating, man.
Yeah, no problem at all. Really fun to watch all the action on the grid here in the West Coast Wednesday League. Gonna move all you guys here. Bang! That is round 2 of the West Coast Wednesday League complete. Thank you all for joining us tonight. A huge thanks to Jake Wells, Potts Weaver, and Jace Wright for co-streaming with us. Eric's got our raid ready. And a quick thanks to everybody tuning in tonight, chatting along, watching along, and all the action here at Trackalicious. Before we head to that raid, Eric, let's take a look at the Trackalicious calendar and look at all the action that Trackalicious has to offer throughout the week and throughout all the different throughout all the different sim series available to us. On Mondays, we've got the GT4 Rookies and the GT4 Open Championships in ACC with prizes from Next Level Racing. On Tuesdays, we switch over to Le Mans Ultimate for the Multi-Class 60 Championships, 60-minute races in hypercars, and the Le Mans GT3s. Going to the Bahrain Outer Ring next week for the final race of the first championship, and then immediately after that will be another 5-race championship in that following that same format. On Wednesdays, like you saw here, we have our GT3 West Coast Championship. I do need to update those calendar times as we started a week later than predicted. But next week we will be going to Spa for another 50-minute race. On Thursdays we switch over to iRacing starting at 6:30 Eastern for the mixed GT3 and GT4 Championship. This Thursday the racing will be at Monza tomorrow night for a 60-minute race, before switching over to Fridays with Le Mans Ultimate at 8:30 Eastern Time. There's an alternating championship between the Multi-Class Masters with 100-minute races in hypercars and the GT3s, and then the Orica Masters Cup as well, and that is the LMP2 Championship, those two on an alternating schedule. This week, Fuji in the Multi-Class Masters. No racing on Sundays apart from the occasional one-off fun IRL swap or endurance events that Trackalicious hosts. I do believe we have one this weekend, so check the Discord and join that event if you have the opportunity to do so. Those are super fun between family and friends events. And then, of course, on Sundays, the Next Level Racing GT3 Pro Championship hosted by Trackalicious in ACC, starting at 8:30 Eastern on Sundays. We've got rounds 1 and 2 under our belts in Barcelona and Donington, and we are going to the Hungaroring this coming Sunday for an 80-minute race. And of course, the championship winner in the Next Level Racing Championship will receive an ERS4 Fabric and Sim Aero Mesh Edition cockpit seat for their sim rig. !NLR to check out all of the Next Level Racing products. More than chairs available. And of course, prizes going to those in the GT4 Rookies and GT4 Open Championships. Absolutely fun, action-packed calendar here at Trackalicious. Join the Discord, sign up on SimGrid for all of those lovely events that we have here at Trackalicious. I've been Kuja Terekov. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's hit it with that raid, Eric. Thank you again to everybody watching. Thank you to the co-streamers. And have a good night, everybody. We'll catch you next time.